Chapter 3 Sally 4th S. Gundam The Devil's Garden. Amidst the tumult of the Second World War, in the heart of the 1940s, the German forces entrenched in the North African sphere of conflict birthed a formidable defensive structure. Its moniker was inspired by the treacherous minefield in Tobruk, a chilling testament to its deadly power. The defensive mechanism was tripartite in structure. Encircling Pezun, the outermost layer consisted of satellite missiles, which had proven surprisingly effective when employed by the Zeon forces during the one-year war in the Battle of Solomon. These satellite missiles were a low-tech, energy-efficient weapon. These missiles were but masses fitted with propulsion systems vestiges of asteroids or warships, designed to collide with the enemy in an unceremonious crash. Floating within this orbital ring were gun turrets, salvaged from the refit of the Salamis-class cruisers, repurposed onto improvised platforms that once served as spacework aids. These cannons were set to serve as the fortress cannons of Pezun. Despite being reclaimed wreckage, these were the former primary guns of cruisers thus. Their might remained formidable. Each turret was tethered to Sol 7804, a power satellite supplying a steady stream of energy. The cryptic directive "the flowerbed has been tended to," relayed from COD to offshore, signaled the completion of this vital connection. In the wake of the one-year war, the space between Earth and the Moon was a graveyard of derelict asteroids and colonies, the haunting remnants of devastation. The power satellites that once breathed life into these colonies now languished in desolation. Sol 7804, designed to empower the space colonies of Side 2 nestled in the L4 Lagrange point, was fortuitously unscathed by the war, still teeming with life. Recognizing its worth, New Decides eyed this derelict Sol 7804 to ensure a stable power supply to Pezun and bolster its defenses. Moving Pezun to L4 was a deliberate move calculated to exploit the high output capacity of this satellite. The last bastion of defense for Pezun was the New Decides fleet, manned by an elite cadre of mobile suit pilots. One would think Task Force Alpha, comprising a mere 5 vessels, would be easily wiped out. Indeed, they were destined to bloom like flowers of light in the Devil's Garden. Damn it. A stall for time, after all? On the bridge of the Pegasus 3, Manning slammed his fist on the combat information console. As the FAZ team returned and Crypt relayed the battle, details, unease began to nestle within Manning's. He hastily made his way to the bridge, a relic of an era when visual combat was the norm. Old naval vessels had combat information centers. I see a room dedicated to such functions. In space vessels, these functions had been shifted back to the bridge. Despite the existence of separate bridges for combat and general use, this merging of functionalities was a risk. Detail the situation, Lieutenant Mannings. What is this stall for time? Commander Heathrow, the ship's captain, asked from his seat behind Mannings. Thinking this damn fool, what has he laid his eyes on? Mannings switched the main monitor on the bridge to display combat information and said, "We're projecting the free movement and orbit of the debris around Pezun. It's a veritable fortress." Heathrow's eyes widened at the 3D holographic display. Whoa, why? Our reconnaissance drone didn't report anything like this before the FAZ squadron's sortie. Indeed, it seemed like nothing more than debris. You and the Combat Information Evaluation staff assumed it was natural for there to be a large amount of debris floating around here since this place was hit first by Zeon during the previous war. But it's not mere debris. Heathrow trailed off. Exactly. They must have taken that into account. I suspect the rocks and debris they've deployed around Pezun have been turned into mass bombs. We made a grave misjudgment. But there's a chance they're not operational, Heathrow offered. The probability of that is extremely low, to say the least. The enemy mobile suit squadron engaged by the A.E.U.G squadron was likely stalling. The ease of their retreat indicates their defense network is active. Hearing this, Heathrow ordered the comms officer to send an emergency transmission to Penta and the helmsman to alter course. Captain, evasive maneuvers are futile at this point. There's no point in struggling now. If those gun turrets are active, it's akin to having 3 cruisers on our tail. If we try to evade, we'll be shot from behind. Since we proceeded at a slow speed without any precaution, we were already well within their effective firing range. It'll take about an hour for Penta to receive our laser transmission via relay satellite, and about 3 days for the fleet to depart from Penta and reach this area. By then, we'll probably be space dust. In that case, do you have any better alternatives? Well, there's one that's better than doing nothing. All right, let's hear it. Taking a deep, resigned breath, Heathrow followed through on Manning's grudgingly accepted strategy, one he dourly deemed better than doing nothing. Evident reluctance etched in his movements. He ordered reverse acceleration across the entire fleet. Forward thrusters of each vessel roared into overdrive, pushing the armada into a backpedal, extricating themselves from the effective firing range of the gun emplacements. A necessary measure, albeit one that risked exposing their vulnerable rear to the enemy whilst bleeding propellant and slugging their pace. Overuse of the braking thrusters posed an additional threat, with potential overheating leading to catastrophic damage. The harsh, ominous glow of emergency lights bathed the ship interiors in a surreal red hue. Commands echoed through each corridor, ordering all hands to don their normal suits. As the crew followed orders, their eyes never strayed from the detection monitors. Suddenly, a cry sliced through the nervous anticipation delivered by an astrogation officer. Captain, we have small, unidentified objects moving in our direction. Don't panic. They shouldn't be performing random acceleration. Heathrow tried to maintain an air of calm. I am the one in command here, Lieutenant Mannings, he countered with a veneer of officer's school pride. To him, it was a polite way of saying, don't overstep your bounds. Then, to his gunnery officer, he commanded, weapons free! Open fire within effective range, granting the green light for engagement. The Pegasus 3's main guns swiveled, zeroing in on the cluster of satellite missiles inching ever closer to the fleet. To the naked eye, they were mere specks of light, not yet threatening in their distant silence. The gunnery officer aligned the targeting of one of the assigned satellite missiles within the fleet's space defense system and fired them. Mega particle cannon. Lines of fire also extended from the Salami's Kai-class cruisers that were sailing in a Level 1 combat alert position in a spherical formation around the Pegasus 3. Within seconds, the satellite missiles, the previously innocuous points of light, blossomed into incandescent orbs. First salvo successful. 6 shots penetrated the barrage. The accuracy has improved compared to before. Mannings mused over the artillery officer's report, his mind flashing back to the desperate ship blasts during the 1-year war. However, he knew that accuracy against targets with the mobility a mobile suit would still be significantly diminished. While the accuracy of ship cannons had indeed improved, the mobility and crisis management capabilities of mobile suit targets had also evolved. Prepare for the second volley from the main cannon and prime our close-range defense missiles, Heathrow commanded, but he was interrupted by the astrogation officer's urgent cry. Confirmed beam emission from Pazoon. Shift focus. All ships engage anti-beam defenses. Under Heathrow's directive, the gunnery officer rapidly toggled the weapon system. This was an eye-tracking operation, where the operator merely needed to glance at the command displayed on the monitor for selection. Streamlined, unmanned drones rose from the weapon launchers of the Pegasus 3, tracing an arc toward the aft of the ship, before bursting into a cloud of high polymer gas. This gas mushroomed into a protective sphere, with each retreating ship nesting within. Its function mirrored that of the beam dispersal screen used during the one-year war, attenuating incoming beams. All hands, brace for impact. No matter how effective the beam dispersal screen was, it couldn't completely negate the power of the beams. The attenuated beams still carried enough kinetic energy to shake the ships of the Task Force Alpha violently. Amidst the turmoil on the bridge, Heathrow maintained his composure, rapidly issuing orders. All blocks, report damage. Keep launching anti-beam projectiles. Send out close-range anti-space missiles. Enemy is pulling back, sheltering behind a beam dispersal screen. An operator's voice echoed in the control room, eliciting a gratified nod from Pazoon's cod. Beside him, Cray's eyes remained locked on the main monitor, tracking the unfolding battle. Tosh, this isn't as grave as it seems. Seems like there won't be any need for the mobile suits to enter the fray. But the problem is what they might do once they retreat beyond effective range. I have a feeling they're planning something, Cray replied. Don't be foolish. We're both out of range. They'll likely hunker down and await their main force to arrive. If they intend to breach this defensive net and strike, they'll rely on mobile suits. But I've never heard of any mobile suit capable of monstrous acceleration. That fleet is a detachment of regular forces. It's unlikely that any ships carrying mobile armor are accompanying them. You're blissfully naive, Brave. I know of a mobile suit capable of high-speed strikes and swift retreat. The Zeta? But that's not mass-produced. Plus, it's supposed to be on the Argama. And the last I heard, the Zeta sustained heavy damage during the colony laser battle. Quite the contrary. There was a plan to mass-produce the Zeta. And I've heard rumors about the development of a successor model. If it had been deployed in combat without our knowledge. Come to think of it, the enemy that Josh engaged had firepower equal to a battleship. Imagine if a suit like that were to strike Sol. Our gun emplacements would be sitting ducks. We should consider upgrading Sol's defenses. Don't fret. You're borrowing trouble where there's likely none. Even if such a mobile suit is deployed, there would be only one at most. There's no need for alarm. Big firepower mobile suits are usually clumsy. That's a given. I hope you're right. But if we get hit, it'll be too late. Brave. 8 years have passed since then. In 8 years, technology could advance tenfold. It wouldn't be surprising if there are high firepower and high mobility mobile suits. We have the Zwei, don't we? The only pilots who can handle such high-performance mobile suits are on our side. If such a mobile suit is deployed, we can just send in the Zwei. Once Cod took a stance, he was immovable, a trait that could be traced back to his days as a cocksure veteran pilot. In this respect, he was starkly contrasting to the more cautious Cray. Meanwhile, Task Force Alpha continued their withdrawal from Pazoon's effective artillery range, punctuated by the deployment of anti-beam projectiles. The high polymer gas film of the anti-beam rounds reduced the effect of the enemy's beams, but also neutralized their own beam weapons that took refuge within this dispersal screen. In this status quo, combat was whittled down to missile exchanges. The missiles of this era were essentially unguided bombs, their reliability questionable. Hence, missiles merely provided a barrage effect through explosions. Tiny, time-fused missiles, launched in great numbers, created defensive lines around the ships and mobile suits through explosive blasts and shrapnel. 2 mass projectiles have breached the missile barrage. They're heading for Takayo and Long Beach. The astrogation officer's voice cuts through the silence as they studied the monitor. These were 2 of the 6 satellite missiles that had evaded the ship's cannon fire moments before. The Takayo holds position, prow pointed ahead of the Pegasus III, while the Long Beach shelters in the left rear below. Prepare for the second salvo, commands Heathrow. But time is against them. There's no time. The artillery officers scramble on the bridges of the two targeted Salamis-class cruisers, Takayo and Long Beach, desperately switching their weapons control system to individual ship anti-satellite systems. Anti-satellite guns swivel, honing in on the rapidly approaching satellite missiles. Evasive maneuvers are impossible now. Spacecraft aren't as nimble as mobile suits. They have to stand their ground and fight. Give 'em hell. The crews of the non-targeted ships, including the Pegasus 3, can do little more than offer silent prayers for the valiant efforts of their comrades on the two under-fire ships. The anti-satellite guns open fire, striking the satellite missiles. Like an eerie, silent film, the missiles start to fragment. But their mass is considerable. They won't just vanish. If only their trajectory would shift, even slightly. Despite the fleet crew's desperate wishes, the crumbling satellite missiles continue their relentless advance toward the two ships. The Takayo's bridge is brutally shorn off, while the Long Beach takes a direct hit from a satellite missile, rocking from its portside missile launcher towards the ship's long axis. A sigh of disappointment whispers through the general frequency band of the Pegasus 3's internal communication system, echoed by the personnel on the bridge. A low rumbling sounds as the satellite missiles continue to burrow into the two ships. Even as cruisers, their armor is little more than paper against the force of the incoming missiles. The defense of a spacecraft includes anti-beam shells and reflective paint to shield against beam weapons, along with anti-missile micromissiles, AMs, barrage against missiles. If possible, random acceleration is used for evasive maneuvers. There is fundamentally no concept of absorbing damage with the structure of the ship itself. But these measures are useless against the intentional collision of large mass objects. Incidentally, while the fleet tactics of spacecraft take their model from seagoing ships, their actual operation is closer to submarines. Takayo and Long Beach. They're going down, the astrogation officer reported to Heathrow, voice strained with helpless desperation. The two ships buckle under the relentless force, twisting into grotesque shapes. When the distortion reaches the engine compartment in the aft of the ships, the two ill-fated cruisers transform into spheres of fiery explosion. Check for survivors from the Takayo and the Long Beach, comes the order. Captain, there likely aren't any survivors, mutters Mannings, his eyes narrowing behind the visor of his normal suit helmet. We've failed miserably. We let the crews of both ships die in vain. No, your fleet command was more than adequate for a first real battle. Commander, out of 5, you only lost 2 ships. Only 2? It's too many, Mannings. How many do you think have died? Is this how a veteran's nerves are supposed to be? As a human being, perhaps, Commander, you haven't yet accepted the reality that this is war. Or are you still credulously believing it was just a demonstration from the General Command? You can't survive on the battlefield if you act with the nerves of an ordinary person. If a mass missile had directly hit this ship, the flagship of the fleet, we would have lost control of the fleet. Now, that would be a catastrophic failure. Just then, the navigational officer interrupted. We've broken out of the effective firing range. Captain, I'd like to execute the second phase of that better-than-doing-nothing strategy. Manning's voice was devoid of emotion. You intend to create more casualties? On the contrary, it's to prevent them. No, we wait for the main force to arrive. Timing, Captain. The enemy should be relaxed now. Surprise and audacity make for a successful attack, remember? Having been decisively countered by Mannings, Heathrow feels his incompetence laid bare in front of his crew. His face reddens with rising anger. As the fleet commander, he can't back down in front of his subordinates. All right, Lieutenant Mannings, execute the operation. But be aware this operation is under your authority as the commander of the fleet's mobile suit squadron, and you are doing it on your own. Thinking of his self-preservation, Mannings thought, This kid, who lost 2 ships, only sees his own future. If this operation fails, he'll likely pin all the blame on me. But that's fine. I just won't get a measly pension. But I won't fail. If I do, then the Takayo and the Long Beach crew would truly have died in vain. Aye, sir. I, Lieutenant Stoll Mannings, will execute the operation using the S Gundam, Zeta Plus, and FA's mobile suits under the direct control of the squadron commander. 2 hours later, an unusually shaped mobile suit emerges on the mobile suit deck of the Pegasus 3. It was named the S Gundam, and the pilot was Rio Roots. The cutting-edge new machine incorporated various mechanisms and was now encased in a rugged booster unit on its lower half. This was the long-distance cruising and high-acceleration mode of the S Gundam. On both sides of the ship's catapult, mass-produced machines of the Zeta Gundam, called Zeta Plus, stand ready. Both were in the Wave Rider form and hence not humanoid. You understand, don't you, Roots? Your only target is Power Satellite Sol 7804. You needn't concern yourself with anything else, said Mannings. I get it. I've been itching to get into a real fight all this time. There were no chances for me in those boring fleet battles. I can't wait to experience real combat, replied Roots, confidently addressing the image of Manning's face reflected in the 360-degree monitor window. That's the spirit. Everything is riding on you. Mannings decided that it was better to let this confident youth maintain his high spirits until the end of the operation. The controls are just like the simulator. I'm ready anytime, Roots continued. While he was speaking, 2 Zeta Plus suits were smoothly launched together from the catapults on both sides. The Vanguard Plus team will cover you. Enter high acceleration 1 minute after FA's team's preparatory bombardment, instructed Mannings. Understood. I've memorized the procedures. Hurry up and launch me. As if in response to Root's voice, the Pegasus 3's linear catapult launching shuttle came back smoothly to the launch position. A light vibration transmitted a solid clank into the cockpit as the catapult latch caught the S Gundam. About 10,000 kilometers ahead of the Pegasus 3, the Vanguard FAS team, under the command of Crypt, was hidden behind a dummy asteroid, preparing for the attack. The time until the start of the operation was being counted down on the monitor window. Countdown. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Fire! Crypt's voice cut through the tense silence like a blade. At his command, the 3 mechanical beasts of the FAS team discharged their hyper-mega launchers in a flurry of light and energy. S Gundam, Rio Roots, let's do this. The command vibrated with anticipation. As the last echo of Crypt's voice faded into the abyss of space, the S Gundam was catapulted from the Pegasus 3, hot on the trail of the 2 Zeta Plus machines. Count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Propelled by the fusion of linear catapult acceleration and the raw force of normal cruising mode, the S Gundam and Zeta Plus machines sliced through the vacuum, assembling into a V-shaped formation as they darted towards the front line where the FAS team held their ground. All right, let's go. As the Zeta Plus machines subtly adjusted their trajectories, branching off to the left and right, Roots threw the S Gundam's throttle into overdrive, into the realm of high acceleration. The booster unit responded with a roar that would have shattered the silence if sound could travel in space. The ensuing acceleration was a maelstrom, relentlessly pressing Roots back into his seat. Almost instantly, the S Gundam outran the 2 Zeta Plus machines, and their formation morphed from a V into an inverted V. Count up. 56, 57, 58, 59, 100. Bloody hell. He's off like a shooting star. Is that really a mobile suit? Disbelief underscored Crypt and his team's voices, as they watched the S Gundam blaze across the cosmic stage, a comet tail of propellant in its wake. Die, damn it. What kind of acceleration is this? Root's voice trembled, mirroring his body's struggle against the punishing force of acceleration. The emergency mode of the S Gundam was not a playground. It was a testing ground. Despite the state-of-the-art anti-G suit and linear seat, the intense gravity born from thrust acceleration was an unrelenting adversary. This was uncharted territory, a wild, untested beast of technology. Ignoring Cod's optimism, Cray boarded the ZQ-8s and headed towards Seoul. On the way, laser comms crackled in the cockpit. Tosh, you were right. The long-range bombardment has started. There are 3 lines of fire. It was Cod's voice. From where? Measuring. No, wait. This can't be. What's happening? There's a suit coming at us with insane acceleration. A mobile armor. No way. It's mobile suit-sized? Cray's suspicions were confirmed. The enemy fleet was packing an advanced mobile suit. Brave, launch the mobile suit team immediately for interception, he commanded, pushing the ZQ-8s to its limit as he rocketed towards Seoul. Following Cray's advice, COD issued launch orders to Offshore's 1st Assault Team and the 4th Assault Team, led by Lieutenant Fastside. 18 ZQ-8s took off towards Seoul, a metallic swarm, ready to meet the mysterious enemy head-on. In the meantime, the S Gundam was tearing a path through space, hell-bent on reaching Seoul. Inside the cockpit, Roots was a picture of tension, his face glistening with cold sweat as he navigated through a minefield of drifting satellite missiles. It's no use. I can't keep up with the S Gundam's acceleration. West gritted his teeth as he tried to track the S Gundam with his Zeta Plus. Do we really need to provide support? Ensign Sigmund Shade, his wingman, growled. The 3 mobile suits swiftly reached the airspace where Pazoon's floating artillery platforms had been deployed. Where's Seoul? Struggling against the overwhelming acceleration force, Roots managed to raise his head and read the data on the 360-degree monitor with great effort. Target position. Reference, suit propulsion direction. Autopilot, set. Upward, 35 degrees, 19 seconds. Rightward, 12 degrees, 32 seconds. Estimated time of target arrival, 0 minutes, 3 seconds, 57 milliseconds. The estimated time of reaching the target continued to count down moment by moment. Next, Roots called up the weapon control system and began selecting and setting up the weapons. Weapon. Priority. 1. Beam cannon target selection. Set firing range. 12,000. Firing rate. Precision shooting. Mode, Alright, I'm going in. A voice echoed with an eerie vibration, resounding deep in his bones. Seoul the target, it was now or never. No good. Can't lock on, Cod exclaimed, frustration edging his words. The floating gun emplacements faltered in their targeting, firing into the emptiness of space instead of striking the S Gundam. Enemy unit breached the final defense line. The operator's voice lacked the calm typically inherent in such roles. I'm counting on you. There's no one else who can stop it. Cod yelled again into the command console mic. The team dispersed, forming a defensive line around Seoul, and unleashing a flurry of machine gun fire. The rounds traced trajectories towards the enemy, looking akin to icy flares against the void. 8 seconds. 9 seconds. When Offshore silently counted to 10 in his mind, he saw a pale blue object twinkling at a point in the void. Here it comes. Offshore intuitively fired a full magazine, the rounds spewing from his gun in full auto mode as he steered his ZQ-8s into a steep dive. Go! The S Gundam's targeting system located a point of light far away Seoul. This point of light should be properly recognized as Seoul by the S Gundam's firing control system. Bafoom! Light burst from the beam cannon in a rushing torrent, the Minovsky particles converting into kinetic energy and flying true towards the point in the void that was Seoul. The two other Zeta Pluses followed in suit. Blam, blam, blam! God damn it. A moment later, enemy fire struck the S Gundam's armor. But the armor remained intact against this level of attack. With an ethereal whoosh, beams of light slashed through the darkness, colliding with Seoul. Two more beams followed, slightly delayed from each side. The first beam perfectly pierced Seoul's dull gray outer shell, effectively severing Seoul's internal mechanisms. A delayed beam grazed the void where Offshore's unit had hovered just seconds prior, its partner beam impaling a Zeku-Eins from the first assault team mid-assault. The pilot's screams echoed within Offshore's cockpit. Would have been me if I was slower, he muttered, a cold shiver snaking down his spine. As the chill receded, it was replaced by a swell of anger at the loss of a subordinate. This wasn't mourning. This was the resentment of losing a chess piece in a grand cosmic game. Unbeknownst to him, Cray had ingrained this feeling in him, making Offshore oblivious to the danger of being obedient. Don't let him escape. Regaining his composure, Offshore squared his sights, the harsh staccato of his machine gun resonating in a discordant rhythm. Doc, 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 Doc. The once benign orbs of light morphed into the monstrous silhouette of a mobile suit, a behemoth sphere of illumination nestled on its back. This is a suicide attack. A kamikaze, isn't it? Roots cursed Mannings as he plunged into the barrage. He felt like he might wet himself. But he couldn't stop this high acceleration abruptly. Decelerating in this kill zone was suicide, a dance with death slower but no less fatal. An abrupt, sharp sound as something was blown away. Alarm. Armor damage. Head 20.96%, condition, green. Left arm 40.53%, condition, yellow. Torso 12.63%, condition, green. Left upper arm armor, blown off. The armor on the left arm. Trying to wear bravado like a cloak, Root's body betrayed him. A warm tide began pooling in his groin. Each agonizing microsecond stretched into an eternity as the beam cannon charged. As soon as the charge was complete, the second shot fired by the S.U. Gundam accurately targeted and brought down a single Zeku-Eins unit. In front of Offshore, a Zeku bloomed into a fireball. The two remaining shafts of death wove through space, dissipating into the void. Among the survivors was Cray's suit, a silhouette against the cosmic backdrop. Bagoom! Like specters, 3 mobile suit units streaked past the new Decides formation, leaving a graveyard of wrecked mobile suits and a shot-up soul remaining behind. Did we accomplish nothing? Offshore stood in stunned silence. What kind of mobile suit was that? Was humanity's technological prowess just a charade against these monstrous machines? All commanders, check for surviving suits. Cray's command broke the silence, pulling Offshore back to reality. The doubt Offshore held was a shared sentiment among all new Decides pilots who participated in this battle. The battle had chipped at their invincibility, their confidence now a cracked mirror. 1 hour after forcibly decelerating with reverse thrust and leaving the combat zone, the S Gundam and 2 Zeta Plus units returned to the Pegasus, 3 after a circuitous route around the battlefield. Well, we got pretty beat up, huh? Looking up at the battered upper body of the S Gundam, Roots muttered. But the 2 Zeta Plus units had sustained more damage due to differences in armor material. Given the high relative speed, the S Gundam should have sustained more damage if hit by the same mass of enemy fire. Roots couldn't help but feel a chill imagining the consequences if it had been a mass-produced machine, like a Jim 3 or Nero. Roots jumped from the mobile suit deck and headed for the airlock, his groin uncomfortably cold and heavy. "Hey, boss. Looks like you had a tough time, didn't you?" Crypt's words caught Roots off guard in the pilot pit, delivered with a pinch of innocence. The operation was a success. Thanks to the destruction of Seoul, their defense capabilities have definitely been halved. Manning's joined in, a consoling pat on Roots' shoulder. "You say that so casually. That's like telling us to die, isn't it?" Roots snapped back, but he lacked the vigor he had before the sortie. His behavior felt off. "Catching on?" Manning's whispered, "Better clean up quickly. General Piss Pants." Shut up. None of your business. There's no need to be embarrassed. It's something that often happens in your first battle. Manning's quipped, a sly eyebrow raised. 2 days later, during this period, New Decides and Task Force Alpha only engaged in surveillance and reconnaissance actions, and no real combat occurred. On this day, 2 Salami Sky-class cruisers from Side 5, the Ulysses and Cumberland, joined the task force in place of the lost Takayo and Long Beach, bringing the fleet back to its original number when it departed from Earth. On the other hand, the Earth Federation Command finally made the decision to forcefully suppress Pezun and the New Decides. It was the calm before the storm of the Battle of Pezun.